You out there guys, this is Dale of Lone Wombat Airsoft, and today we're taking a look at YTA's The Pines. Now, two things to note before we get into this review. First and foremost is that just like with YTA's The Pit, I am sponsored by this site. Now, whilst I'm going to try my absolute best to keep this review as fair and unbiased as possible, it wouldn't be right if I didn't let you guys know that fact before we got into it. Second of all is that this is a first impression review. I'd never been to the site before the day I turned up on, so everything I'm going to talk about in this video is based on my experiences of that day and that day only. And so with that out of the way, on with the review. So the site's located on the Great North Road in Bawtry. Now, the postcode for the site can be found in the description down below, and for me the sat-nav dropped us off exactly where we needed to be. However, we blew right past the site's entrance the first time round because there wasn't an explicit sign out for airsofting. The one you need to keep a lookout is for the Bawtry paintball. You turn down there, you'll find yourself on a really long, smooth track road with a left turn at the end. Follow that all the way down to there and you'll find yourself in the car park. Now, the big thing to note is that the airsoft is not found in the main activity centre. So even though it does look like the clear main entrance is there with the chopper over it, you don't want to go into that. Instead of going in there, make an immediate right turn, follow the wall down, and the safe zone for the airsoft will be on the end of that complex there. So walk-on fees for the day then are £20 if you're a member of Yorkshire Tactical Airsoft and £25 if you're not. If you're wanting to hire kits, then £35 will get you an AEG and a face mask, £45 will get you an AEG, face mask, attack vest and ammo for the day. Please note that lunch is not included as part of any of those walk-on fees, however, and you can book a deposit in advance, and if you wanted to get a hire kit, I strongly recommend you do book in advance just to avoid disappointment on the day. They don't actually serve the hot food in the airsoft place. You have to go into the main paintballing activity centre for that, where they have like a full-blown cafe. So they're serving various different kinds of hot food and drink there, so they've got loads on offer. You can just grab yourself a slice of cake halfway through the day if you really feel like it. The one thing that really impressed me though was the quality of the safe zone. Bearing in mind this is an offset, this wasn't in the main complex, so just a little airsoft safe zone. It was such a high quality bit. Like, it's completely encased from the elements, so you don't have to worry about weather. There's plenty of bench and seating spaces for everyone. You've got a small selection from the ASP UK shop in there, so you can buy BBs, gas, ammo, like iPro and foregrips if you really want. But the thing that really made it stand out to me was how secure it was as a safe zone. As well as locking it in between games, they'd only allow players into it if they had a marshal accompanying them, like if a game was going on at the time. And they've got like motion censored security cameras that activate when people go in. It was just such a secure thing that made it really unique in my experience from airsoft sites. I've never come across another safe zone that does something like that, so that was very impressive. FPS limits for the site then are 350 if you've got full auto AEGs, 450 for semi-auto DMRs, and 500 for bolt-action sniper rifles. They will give you a little tag to stick on the gun as well, a little zip tie, so they will be checking that before you go into the game, so there's no hiding from the chrono test. So what were the staff on site like then? Well, in my experience, they were quite friendly and approachable, and they knew a lot about the games that were going on. The morning safety brief was short and to the point. They were reading off a card so that they didn't miss anything, which was really quite good. However, a minor improvement on that is instead of reading at the card quite quickly, they could just like speak up to the room a little bit at a more even pace. It just helps the guys at the back understand what's being said to them a bit easier. During the games then, they were really on the ball rules wise. Like just before the first game had started, one of the higher players had gone to reach and lift up his face mask. They were on that in the instant it happened. They were making sure that people's guns were completely empty, including the chambers when they were going back into the safe zone, quite on the ball rules wise, so with the hit taking. And for the players then, now we did actually get speaking to quite a lot of them. They were very welcoming to it, like we've got a lot of conversations going on, so there was quite a good friendly atmosphere throughout the day. On the subject of hit taking, however, the first game for the day, there was quite a bit of it going on both sides. So what the marshals did is pulled both teams to the side and just said, right, this shit is not on, and anyone else caught doing it from that point on will be ejected from the site. And funnily enough, after that happened, the hit taking cleared up completely. So yeah, funny that, isn't it? But so yes, whilst there was a bit of hit taking going on in the first game day, what I'm really quite happy to see is that the marshals had no hesitation in just laying down the law and saying, no, this is not tolerated. So very good to see that, in my opinion. So what was the site terrain like then? Well, since this is obviously a paintball centre, I went in expecting to find a lot of small arenas to play in, but what really took me by surprise was just how many of these arenas there were and what the sheer square acreage of the site was. I'm fully convinced that we didn't even manage to see half of what the site had to offer that day. But what we did see was thoroughly impressive. As a paintball site, almost all of the ground was clear, so you're able to run up and down at a pace to a heart's content. There wasn't a huge amount of virgin woodland to wade through, but there were definitely sections of thick foliage if you really went looking for it though. There was a huge amount of man-made cover on offer to make up for that, so barrels, fortifications and God knows how many Land Rover husks. They actually had proper forts to defend as well, with upper level battlements and multiple points of entry. One map had a huge bridge expanding across the middle that you had to fight over, and there was one with a ruined helicopter as a centrepiece in one map. So there's lots of variety on offer then. Even if we had played in a different area each time, I don't think we would have covered what the entirety of the site had to offer. So site replay value is absolutely a given. Due to the layout of the land, not only did these areas look different, they felt unique to play in as well. So overall, very impressed with what the site terrain had to offer. So what type of game types were on offer throughout the day then? Well, the first one we played was a simple domination game type. There were multiple plywood cards with a red and a blue side on them, scattered across the map, and so whichever team had the most cards flipped to their colour would win. It was fought in like a long corridor, so it did ferry both teams into each other, but there was enough cover on offer that you could make multiple spearhead points when you were pushing, so it's not like you were just ferried in a single direction, which actually kind of added a bit more life to the game than I initially feared there would be because of the corridor shape of the map. Just having all that variety of cover really has helped sell that as a game, so even though you are all going in one direction, you've got multiple little ways you can go and multiple different angles, so maybe you can't get the guy who's directly in front of you, but if you go a bit to the left with another bit of cover there, you can get in there, so that still worked quite well, especially as an opening game. The next few games we played were attack and defence in these giant castle fortifications they had. Attacking team would have unlimited lives, defenders would have 2 each, and once they were gone, they were out of the game entirely. The trick was to eliminate the defenders as quickly as possible, but the thing to twist it up a little bit is that in front of the castle was a marshal. If one of the attacking players could reach him, tap him on the shoulder, he'd set off a small explosive that would count as an airstrike and instantly eliminate 1 life off all the defending players. So I'm really quite impressed that they managed to find an incentive to get players to push for the meat grinder in the centre. Because usually with these game types, most people will just go around the sides like I tend to do, and they'll get clogged up in the various points. But by encouraging people to go to the centre, there was an even spread of attackers the entire way through. So I really enjoyed these game types. And they flipped it around so both teams would have a chance of attacking and defending both castles. So there were 4 games in total. And so yes, whilst we were playing the same game type 4 times, the fact that we were playing it from different perspectives and going in different directions each time kept it just fresh enough to keep it interesting. So even though we were doing the same game multiple times, I was still having fun with them. The next game we played was where we had to escort an engineer from one end of a site to another across a bridge into the comm station at the far end. Attackers were on unlimited lives. The defenders had a set pool that they could draw from. It was like 50 or 40 lives, something like that. Once those were gone, they were on hit and dead. Now, the game was sound in concept, especially like the bridge as a centrepiece. The problem was, though, is that attackers were limited to just the bridge that they could cross the centre of the map with. And when you're coming off the bridge, there's a good 5-10 metre run where you're just ferried into a bottleneck and the defenders can get a good open angle on you. So it kind of slowed the progress of that game a little bit. How I'd fix this is simple. Open up a second bridge. That way the attackers can split their attack across multiple points and the defenders won't be focused on one location. They'd have to spread themselves out a bit to cover multiple angles. So I think doing that would actually improve the flow of the game significantly. The next game we played was Intel Recovery. We're playing on the map with the chopper in the centrepiece in the middle. There were various props all decorated around it, so like bombs, first aid packs, laptops, that sort of thing. That all counted as intel. So what the players had to do, both teams were on unlimited regen, was sprint into the middle, grab a bit of intel and get it back to your start point, and whichever team had the most would win. Obviously if you're shot whilst carrying one, you had to drop it where it was. So very fun game type, and especially due to the layout of the map, it was huge, especially for considering it was a paintball site. You had a lot of room to play in on both sides of the objective. So you could actually go all the way around on one side and then come back into the centerpiece. Definitely enjoyed that one. There was lots of room to maneuver, lots of angles to get, and it was very fast paced because both teams were on unlimited regen. The last game of the day was a standard infection game type on the same map with the chopper. So you'd have a small squad of players started as infected. Whoever they killed would join their team until eventually the entirety of the player base was on their team, bar the one unfortunate poor sod who was facing off against all of them. So decent cooldown game for the end of the day. However, I think infection game types on their own could be made a bit more interesting if they were added on as like a tweak to an existing game type. So what I propose instead is maybe have something like a standard team deathmatch where both teams have the infected power-up. So whoever, if they shoot an enemy player, they must join their team, and if they get shot, they must join the enemy team. So the number of players and their allegiances is going back and forth on that. And the winner would then be whoever completely wipes the other team or has the most members after 10 minutes. So that might be an interesting take on it for future games. So ultimately then, would I recommend a visit to Yorkshire Tactical Airsoft's The Pines? Absolutely, in my opinion. I had a great day out when we went there, and I'd have no problem bringing up my mates with me to show me what the site was like. The place was really good. The on-site facilities were excellent. The games were tightly run. The games themselves were interesting. They had decent ideas for them. The site layout, the terrain on offer was especially impressive. So all round good fun with that. Granted, yes, there was a lot of non-hit taking in the first game of the day, but they stamped down that really quick, and the bridge game could use a bit of a tweak to make it flow a bit better, but other than that, I had an excellent day all round. Now, I hope you've enjoyed my video review of YTA's The Pines. If you've got any questions you'd like to ask me or feedback you'd like to give, then leave a comment down in the section below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And until next time, this has been Dale of Lone Wombat Airsoft.